Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, I have a serious injury that led to new boss exile. The second story, Karen didn't want to sell me a ticket, and I found a way to get it. The third story, boss ordered me to follow the schedule, and I was at work at 8:30. And the first story is, boss destroys the store and my leg. So this takes place close to 2 years ago, and I'm just gonna rattle off some useful information. I live in the UK and work night shift in one of the busiest supermarket chains in the area. There was 2 shops about 45 minutes apart from each other. So our job was pretty simple. Take cages out, work out back stock, proceed to work the new delivery, and then put all the leftovers on either the cage or capping shelves. Simple, right? Yes, but the job had one slight issue. We spent a good majority of our 9-hour shifts on our knees, and due to an injury I sustained about a year into working there, I had a very sensitive and weak right knee. Due to this, I asked my previous boss and the store manager if it was okay to swap out the usual trousers they provided us and buy myself a pair of padded knee ones that you see joiners and brickies wear. This was okay as long as I bought them in the navy blue associates with our store, and I even went out of my way to have the store's logo embroidered onto them so it would meet an acceptable standard. With that out of the way, my old boss left our store due to him retiring. With the hectic trouble of finding a new night shift manager to replace him, they brought over one of the managers from our sister store. We'll call her Karen. Now, Karen was a turbo bee compared to our old boss. She never helped out in the shop floor, despite us being severely understaffed. She never filled in the rotas on time, and then beat about the fact people wouldn't turn up to overtime shifts, even though she needed to ask if we could work it before filling us into that shift. She would never do any of her assigned jobs, and left a lot of work for the other manager to pick up. Everyone hated Karen. So about 3 months into Hurricane Karen, she decides to go for me. She takes me into the office and then proceeds to bash me for the non-company gear I was wearing, my trousers, and how she couldn't let me stay in store wearing them and that I had to go home and change. I tried to argue that I needed them because my knee was really bad, and without it I'd be in considerable pain, but she wouldn't budge. Keep in mind this was a Saturday, our busiest day, and we had a double delivery and protocol would have let me off with a verbal warning. So after I gave up, I grabbed my car keys and headed home. What I didn't tell Karen is that my house was a 30-minute drive there and an additional 30 minutes back because I lived in the countryside. I got home and proceeded to root through my cupboard till I find an old pair of work trousers, got changed, got into my car and drive a bit towards work, stop and started, watched YouTube, wasting as much time as possible. It was only about 15 minutes after I got in my car that Karen called. I let it ring. A second call. I left that one too. I picked up on my third call and apologized, explained to her that I'd received a puncture and I was in the middle of waiting for my friend to come replace the tire, due to my bad knee. A couple of minutes of swearing later, I hang up on her and continue to waste another hour, ignoring the many phone calls I received from her. After I wasted enough time, I start the engine and casually drive back to work. Arriving at what I can only describe as utter chaos, Karen is ordering the other 2 workers. We're down 2 people because the rota was late, and they didn't get notified of the overtime. Around like slaves, not following protocol at all, and having a hissy fit. When I get in, she immediately scalds me for being so late, and orders me into booze, the heaviest aisle except from juice. I try to explain to her that due to my knee, I can't do that level of hefty lifting, and that she should check my employee records, as it's noted down there. Once again, she was having none of it, demanding me into the aisle, even threatening me with a workplace disciplinary if I don't. So I get to work. I do my best with all the heavy lifting, but after an hour in there, my knee buckles without the padding for when I'm kneeling in the lifting. I collapse in agony, smashing a large case of vodka as I go. Karen, as sympathetic as expected, comes in and screams at me to stop faking and to get back to work, and in her infinite wisdom decided to stamp on my left to prove I was faking it. Big effing mistake. My coworkers had already called for an ambulance, knowing how bad my injury is. Karen spends a good chunk of time arguing with the paramedics that I'm faking everything. One look at my leg and the visible pain I was in made up the pair as minds, and I was rushed to the hospital. I had my leg checked out, and I had severely pulled and ruptured my ACL and my MCL. The next day, I make a formal complaint into work via email, as well as phoning the shop manager to complain personally, as we'd been friends for a while. Due to Karen's behavior being caught on the CCTV in our booze aisle, as well as her many workplace violations for not following protocol, as well as not caring about my health and well-being of an injured staff member, she was ousted from the company, and I received a substantial claim due to my workplace injury. I later found out she was only transferred over because our sister store's manager hated her with a burning passion. My leg? It's still not amazing, to be honest. I use some of my compensation money to pay for a very good physiotherapist, so most days I'm crutchless, just the odd day when I've overworked when I'm not amazing. Karen. Now last I've heard, Karen is now an Avon lady due to the smallness of the town I live in. She couldn't find a job, as everyone knew what she'd done. She's living a very unhappy life, divorced as her attack on me gave her husband a reason to hit the eject button and take the kids. He's now living very happy with his partner. They're such a cute couple. The next story is, look Karen, I made a friend. A few years ago, I was meeting two friends at the county fair. I was running late due to the traffic. The fair is a pretty big deal around here, so I told them to go ahead without me. When I finally got there, I went to the ticket booth to buy a ride pass. For $10, you could get a wristband allowing you unlimited rides. This was a much better deal than getting single ride tickets, which cost $1 each. Except this year, something was strange. Usually you could buy just one wristband no problem, but for some reason the only way to buy them this year was to get two at once. Now obviously my two friends had bought their wristbands together, so I didn't have a second person to buy one with. I went up to the ticket taker, who looked a lot like a stereotypical entitled person. The short blonde bob, the oversized sunglasses on top of her forehead, the rolls of fat hanging out of her red vest, all the fair workers were wearing. She looked at me and said in the most annoyed voice, "Can I help you?" Yes, I wanted to buy a ride pass, but I don't have a second person to buy it with. Could I just have one wristband? What, are you telling me you have no friends? Did you seriously come to the fair alone? I didn't come alone, it's just my friends already bought wristbands. That's it? You don't have a sibling, cousin, parent, anything? I find that hard to believe. Yeah, of course I do, they're just not here. And you only have two friends? Maybe if you had more, it wouldn't be a problem. Now go off and make a friend, then you can come back and get a pass. Her attitude really annoyed me, just about as much as this ridiculous new rule. Like, if they could sell you two passes, then what was the problem with selling one? I get most people don't go to the fair alone, but what if there was an odd amount of people? I really didn't want this annoying ticket taker to have her way, so I did just what she said and decided to make a friend. Standing behind me in the ticket line was a pregnant mom and her daughter, about 8 or 9. I was assuming the mom wasn't going to be riding any rides, and they seemed to be giving in and just getting single ride tickets. That's when I got an idea. I pulled the little girl aside and asked her if she would like to get a ride pass. She said yes, and I got back in line with them. Did you make a friend yet? Asked the annoyed ticket taker. I did actually. Me and my new friend here would like to buy a ride pass, I said, smirking. The ticketer stuttered and tried talking back, but there was nothing she could do. The rules stated that the pass had to be bought by 2 people. It never said they had to be together or even know each other. The mom and me each paid $10 and took our wristbands. The daughter thanked me and we parted ways. I went to go catch up with my friends, and we spent the rest of the day at the fair. I went back to the fair the next day, but this time with my twin sisters, where I discovered a new rule. The passes only lasted 1 day, and new ones had to be purchased every day of the fair. This was annoying, but there was nothing I could do. Of course, there was the same angry, overweight ticket taker that was there yesterday. My sisters bought their passes together, and I decided to do the same thing I did the previous day just to spite her. I turned to the person behind me and offered to buy our passes together, since he was in a group of 3 people. He said yes, and we went up to the ticket booth. Me and my new friend here would like to buy a ride pass, I said while looking at her with a big grin. Even more annoyed than last time, she took each of our 10s and gave us wristbands. Of course, she purposefully ripped mine while tearing apart the sheet of bracelets, but it was still so satisfying to beat her at her own game. The next year, the single ride passes were back because of complaints from people, including me. Turns out the fair was just trying to make more money by forcing more people to buy the more expensive single ride tickets. Their plan didn't work because I had found a simple loophole that was used by other people as well. They still had passes for 2 people at a discount, so for my benefit and theirs, I would always find a stranger to go to the booth, where that annoying lady was. She would always be absolutely peeved as I said, "Look, here's my new friend, we would like a ride pass." The last story is, I have to show up at 8:30 no matter what the schedule says? Well, you got it. I was working for a child care center while I was in college. We staggered staff in and staggered them out, so that we were always fully staffed when all the kids were there, and they all had various arrival and leaving times. So staff could be scheduled to arrive anytime between 7:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. I worked Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Even though my schedule was fairly permanent, I would check the schedule that got sent out every Sunday evening. It would always get sent between 6 and 9 p.m., and it would be for that current week, so we had less than 24 hours notice for our weekly schedule. A hot mess express if you ask me, but I'm not in charge, and my schedule is set, so I don't raise too much heck about it. One week I get the schedule, and it says that my arrival time is 9 a.m., instead of my usual 8:30 for the entire week. I figure they're just trying to make minor cuts, and they really like having everyone under the full-time threshold, so I just assumed they were basically cutting my hours, so they could get away with it. No big deal, but I knew that most of the kids arrived at 9, so I would need more time to set up. I get there at 8:45 on Monday and set up quickly and go about my day. I do a little prep Monday night, so I don't have as much to prep in the morning. So on Tuesday, I get there at 8:55, clock in, and begin my day. My week goes on like that, with me prepping in the evening and getting there at 8:55, until Thursday when my boss calls me into the office and reprimands me for my tardiness. I tell her the schedule tells me that my arrival time is 9, so I'm actually arriving early every day. She says that the schedule says 9 just to indicate that you're the morning shift, but if you're scheduled for classroom time, you need to arrive at 8:30, regardless of what the schedule says, so you have time to set up the classroom. I don't agree with this at all, and it's obviously not true, because not everyone arrives at 8:30 anyway. There has to be more distinction than just morning crew versus afternoon crew on the schedule, but she admits that she's partially to blame for the mix-up and doesn't turn it into a formal write-up. I start arriving at 8:30 every morning, just like I had been before the week in question. I'm not a late person. One week I was going to be scheduled for the 1 to 6:30 shift because another coworker needed to switch with me, and we had both agreed to this. So the schedule comes out and says my arrival time is 1 p.m. I arrive at exactly 8:30, clock in, and sit my pretty butt in the office chair and wait. Well, eventually my boss notices that I'm just hanging out in the office and asks what I'm doing. I say, well, I was told to arrive promptly at 8:30, no matter what the schedule says. So, here I am. She says, we don't need you here for the morning, so you can clock out and come back when your shift begins. Nope. I say, you can find a task for me to do until my shift at 1 starts, or I can sit here, but I'm staying clocked in. You were the one that said I have to be here at 8:30 no matter what. I'm just following your instructions. I had to deep clean the entire school until my shift actually started, but it was so worth it because I still got paid for the whole day, and my boss had to admit to me that she was full of it. Watching her try to backtrack was the funniest thing that's ever happened to me. I hope you love these stories. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new video comes out.